pro-choice all the way.
Yo,
God
you
damn
guys
it.
already picked. You guys have decided. Like, look. Haru doesn't believe in God. You believe in God. So
Okay.
perfect. All right.
Okay. We could
So,
we could debate that.
all right, cool. So since you're the affirmative, you start, and we'll
Do we
begin.
have time? Do we have timing? Do we have timing on
Yep,
this?
yep, yep. 10
It's a
minutes. 10 minutes.
2-minute opener
10
for
minutes.
the
No.
affirmative.
It's however long, but the time limit is 2 minutes. So let's go. Whenever you say your first word, we're gonna start your timer.
All right, let's go with the argument by contingency, right? So almost every observed thing we see in the material world, right, is contingent. I can imagine a world where it does not need to exist, right? And so you can follow this chain of things that are unnecessary all the way back to the Big Bang. And then I can also imagine a world where Big Bang didn't necessarily need to happen, right? And so basically what we're looking at is this infinite regress of unnecessary things that can only really be answered by the existence of something necessary, like a necessary ground of being. We have to hit bedrock somewhere, right? And I would identify that thing with God. And not only that, but the universe we live in also has like a direction, right? Life adapts, it moves, it changes, right? And it's always moving towards better adaptation for its environment. And whenever we look at ourselves, right, that we live in a universe that is capable and has moved our species and our relative species towards the capacity for empathy and love and poetry and art and every single thing that makes us distinct from animals. And on top of that, whenever we look at the world, right, every single thing we see is built up of simpler things on another level below it, right? So we have atoms coming together and becoming molecules, right? Smaller, simpler things, basically cooperating, integrating with each other, and transcending. And that structure, I feel like, is very symbolic of how people often conceptualize God. Let's see. Also, okay, how about this? Another argument, right?
You don't have to use the full 2 minutes, right? You don't have to use the full 2 minutes.
No, I mean, this is probably the last thing I say, right? Aesthetic depth is unnecessary for survival. It is unnecessary for reproduction, right? And it's not just unique to humans. We see stories of like bears sitting along riversides watching sunrises, right? And while there's a certain amount of subjectivity,
Time's up. You went over 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, let Haru give a
Yeah,
rebuttal,
so
ask questions or whatever.
basically like with like the prompt that you were talking about of like a god like being necessitating to the like equivocation of the universe because it has to start from somewhere, correct?
Well, basically, we need there needs to be something necessary, right? And I would identify that thing with God.
Yeah, may I ask why we would need something necessary then?
Because an infinite regress of contingent things is incoherent. Like how could we be
Also,
here?
yeah, how so?
Well, because essentially, I would fail to see how we could even like reach this point. Like, how could we traverse an infinite? So, if things go infinitely into the past, then I fail to see how anything. I fail to see how the present moment could even be real.
Yeah, infinity is just like a concept that we use to like grasp stuff that we don't actually understand. It's just a mathematical concept that individuals use, and we're technically in the middle of infinity as well. So to like say that there has to be a beginning would like we don't know that for 100% certainty.
Well, it doesn't have to be okay. My point isn't necessarily that there has to be a beginning. It's just that there has to be something necessary. There has to be something that always has to have existed. And I would identify that with God. I would identify that with deity. Other people would probably call it something else. It's not that there has to be a beginning. It's that there has to be something necessary to cause this chain.
Yeah, and that could just be like it could just be like it could just be the randomness that we don't understand, and it could not need a necessity like character trait that we use.
In him we move, live, and have our being. I would identify that with God.
Yeah, so you're changing the definition of God. Can you repeat that again?
I never actually gave a definition of God. I've been pretty consistent this entire time, but the necessary ground of being is what I would identify with God.
Yeah, wouldn't that just be a definition?
Yeah, it's a definition I'm giving, a necessary ground of being, right? So
Yeah, but right before you like said that you never gave a definition, but you gave a definition earlier into the conversation.
I'm pretty sure my definition has been pretty consistent. I've been working off the
Yeah,
same definition this whole time.
mhm. Yeah, but about like 10 to 15 seconds ago, you said you never gave a definition for God because you did like give the definition of like a necessity character trait that would have to be at the beginning or like before the unnecessary character traits, which I don't understand why we would need a necessary character trait to like make unnecessary things or like to like be at the beginning before unnecessary concepts.
So you would just not even affirm that we would need something necessary whatsoever.
Yeah, why would we need something necessary?
I just find okay. How about here's a question that maybe would highlight this a little bit better, right? So what to you makes an infinite regress of contingent things logically coherent?
Yeah, because like an infinite would just be a mathematical concept that we use to ground stuff that we don't understand. There's not an absolute infinity, because 1 million could technically be infinite if we didn't understand what infinite meant.
Okay, so I see that we're actually talking about two different things, right? So I understand that infinity is a mathematical concept, right? However, this conversation is about reality, right? We're
Yeah,
trying to describe how reality works and decide whether or not a God is more or less likely, right? So whenever I say infinite chain of regress, I am actually talking about something ontological. I'm talking about something real, right?
yeah. So why would you like being adding to a mathematical concept to like ground reality for like the moral belief system that you're holding for what God would be?
I never even mentioned a moral belief system, right? All I'm affirming in this is that there is a necessary ground of being that I would identify with God. And whenever I'm talking about an infinite regress, right, that's because that's basically what I see in the real world, right? That tree outside my window didn't need to exist, and I could follow that from its seed to all of its ancestors, all the way to the hot, dense state at the beginning of the universe, right? And that's kind of the wall where we can't see any farther. But I would contend that this whole chain needs something necessary. I add no other quality to that necessary ground other than the fact that it is necessary and must necessarily exist. That is the only quality I am giving it. I am not giving it moral character.
Yeah, so why call like a common singularity that is like a mathematical phenomenon that we use to explain like at the common state of the universe? Are we equating that to God then?
Because that would also be like the source of structure, right? As Stephen Hawking like asked, like what breathes life into these equations, what makes them real, right? So if we look at the world, it is intelligible, right? Like math is
Uh,
unreasonably effective at identifying the structures and patterns in the world, right? This necessary ground of being would also be the source of that.
mhm.
It would also be the thing that gives us the ability to perceive things like beauty, right? Like if that thing did not exist, or if a different necessary thing existed, then the universe would probably look very different. None of
Yeah,
this,
so
none of this would
math,
be
yeah.
possible. So yeah, I
So
would
math,
identify that with
yeah.
God.
So math actually doesn't have anything because to do with beauty and that kind of stuff through like what you are speaking. Math is just something that we ground to understand the observable
Math
universe.
actually has a lot to do with beauty. What do you mean? Like
Yeah,
take
can you
for instance
explain?
music. Yeah, take for instance like music, right? But like those gaps in songs, like those empty spaces, right? It's not random, right? It's not random at all. It follows a pattern. And
Yeah, but the
also, if we
people.
look at like take for instance like the golden mean or the golden what is it? The golden ratio. Sorry. These mathematical rules, like we find them in beauty. When you look at a spiral galaxy and marvel at it, right?
Yeah,
The ratio of those spirals we can predict with math, right?
yeah.
Mathematics has maybe not an ontological reality. I'm not saying numbers are real, but what I am saying is that often things we find beautiful do obey those rules.
Yeah, so what's the point of like getting off topic, like when we're talking about math and beauty and that kind of stuff? when we could easily, because you're supposed to be taking the affirmative of the position that God does exist, and God, we don't even know what started like the universe and the common singularity because we don't know if that's a necessity trait. It could be a unnecessary trait because there's no proof to prove that the existence of the necessary trait is actually real or anything like that. I'd love some sources.
I think we can definitely lean on logic though, right? Okay, so
Oh.
let's say even we have like Big Crunch, right? Let's say, oh, I'm about to run out of time. This was good. Thank you, Haru.
Hmm.
And AR, what do you think? That should be it, right? 2 minute opener for the affirmative, then 8 minute cross examination, open cross examination,
Yeah.
and then the
Sorry. I
judges
was just
judge,
yeah, I
right?
was just putting up the poll so that the audience could vote on who they feel won. But ultimately, the winner is decided by the judges. Judges, whenever you're ready, you can give your feedback and choose a winner.
All right. Okay, so judges, basically, your job is just to look at that, 2 minute opener and the cross exam and just pick who you thought made a better case. You can just say who you thought, or you could give reasoning, and that should work.
Go.
Love you too, Shark.
I need to read the panel here. There's many words.
Hey, why are you
Who wants
talking?
to start? Who
Hey,
wants to start?
why are you talking?
Who wants to start?
I guess I'll start, even though I don't really know what I'm about to say.
I lost.
Uh, okay, so it's like kind of hard, what in particular I want to value when judging this, so I'm just going to say that. But I'm trying to take into account a multitude of different things. Like, I think his name, it was Sasquatch, right? That debated Haru?
I was the affirmative.
Yeah, you gave arguments, even though I didn't think that they necessarily like all followed and all of that. I think that you gave support, and I could kind of like still man on my own, and I interpreted that as like maybe some sort of support given for God's existence, and Haru only touched on one of those things. It's very hard to say, but I'm just going to go with Sasquatch just because I think that he was a little, how do I phrase this? He's a little more attentive to the dialectic. He was able to maybe kind of keep track of what exactly was being said in the conversation a little bit better.
Jim?
I mean, I think in terms of the argumentation that was presented by Sasquatch in favor of the proposition, it would have been better if he kept it concise. I think he delivered several different arguments, but it's kind of challenging to be able to support and argue for. I think it was like three different ones, but the one that kind of like kept within the confines of the dialectic, which was the argument of contingency. I think he did give support, or at least he gave some justification for why he held that position. And that justification or necessary foundation is what he was defining as God. In the rebuttal of the argumentation, really good line of questioning, but I'm not sure that a sufficient enough rebuttal was given to the answers that Sasquatch was given. So I'm probably going to give it to Sasquatch on this round.
Paige?
Suppose that makes me next. I wrote down some of the points, but we'll just gloss over them. The argument he gave, well, the main one was from contingency. He gave one from aesthetics. I personally would have liked to hear more of the aesthetic argument, but not the point. The argument conclusion was for some necessary foundation, which I take to be a semantic leap. But outside of the gigantic leap, if that's just what you mean by the word God and nothing more, nothing less, the argument you gave was at the very least formally valid and supported. Um, Outside of that, I would have liked to hear more types of justifications for something necessary, some modal argument, instead of just begging the question against the infinitist view. I think at one point you quite literally said it's incoherent, but gave no support for that. But just in lieu of you giving arguments and Haru not being able to sort of force you into justifying some of your motivations, I'm gonna have to give it to you.
Okay, thank you, judges. So Haru, I guess that means you're eliminated. But thank you for coming up. I mean, you can come back, whenever there's not a new challenger. Thank you, though. All right, so now we have Shark next. Shark, pick. So Sasquatch is the king of the hill now, and challengers can come on up and pick a topic to challenge Sasquatch on his crown. So go ahead, Shark.
It has to be something on the background.